Halo Combat Evolved, my very first video game ever. One of the greatest games ever made. One of the most important. You remember how I said in my Doom video that I've spent more time with video games than I have with family members? That wasn't a joke. I really wasn't lying. The Halo series is the series that I've truly spent the most time with in my life. It's majestic, a delicacy in first-person shooters. Without Halo, you wouldn't have Call of Duty or good console shooters. Maybe Fortnite would be PC only or not even exist at all. That second part is absolutely true. Halo had a gameplay loop that was basically ripped away from it and placed into different games, and this quote sums it up perfectly. If you can reuse something rather than bleeding your budget dry, it should be encouraged. Reykjavik said that. So yeah, video games nowadays reuse things more than warranted, thanks to this game. That can be good or bad. Games like Half-Life used its magnificent pacing rather than shooting to keep players engaged, while Halo is about mastering the movement and controls like Blood and Doom. But Halo added in new elements to the FPS genre, like open level design, instead of just hallways with enemies. Halo also added the two-weapon system. Halo did too many things to the genre of shooters and gaming in general. But why does this game have near-perfect scores, have the highest ranked as the most competitive Halo game on PC, being the game general lot shits on the least in the Halo franchise, and be my favorite Halo game of all time? Well, it's time to find out why. Halo's gunplay is fantastic, with all the weapons packing a noticeable punch to enemies. Even the weakest of weapons do something and they hurt the enemies. Unlike the enemies in Half-Life, these are real living creatures. They bleed all over the place, with different colors of blood draining from their lifeless corpses. There's no even a decal limit here, which means you can just beat dead bodies until the game drops to 2 frames per second. It's hilarious. The gunplay is even superior to shooters released today, and combine that with the masterclass enemy roster and the weapon design, this game is just so fun to play. Weapons in Halo are all varied. While there may not be as many as in future installments like Halo 3, but there are plenty of weapons for your killing pleasure. My favorites, the Magnum and Shotgun. This loadout works best for near the end of the game, which is level 7 to level 10. But this weapon selection isn't mandatory, but there's a catch to all these weapons being here. The two-weapon system. In games before Halo, they had you juggle a wide array of weapons, and you had to switch to melee weapons and grenades if you wanted to use melee and grenades. But in Halo, there's a specific button for grenades and melee attacks. Just look at any shooter since Halo and look at this mechanic. Yeah, it's in nearly all of them nowadays. Halo Combat Evolved introduced these mechanics because it was more convenient than switching through all of these weapons to get to your fists. Shooters now abuse these mechanics, but I think it's a welcome addition. Halo had a simple health system, but it had a layer of depth newer Halo games don't have. You have your energy shields, which protects your health bar. Then once your shields have been knocked out, you are a vulnerable human being, and your shields need to recharge, but you have that buffer of health, so you don't die right away like in Halo 2, 3, 4, and 5. Reach had the health system, but it was a lot more different and complex than the first game. I think Halo belongs with the shields, and then you need to find health packs to heal up. Borderlands definitely took heavy inspiration from Halo's health system, and can you blame the developers? Halo Combat Evolved decided to experiment with vehicular combat, and what they did was seamlessly turn your view into a third-person perspective, so you don't get nauseous when you drive around. I swear to God, whenever I drive Half-Life 2's vehicles, I feel like I'm gonna throw up at times. Because the vehicles in that game had a lot of traction to them, which wasn't good, but Halo's vehicles are floaty and hard to control. Their physics are pretty hilarious, but since Halo is one of the first games to experiment with vehicular combat, you can't really criticize it for that. It was a bold new step for the industry. Halo is hard. fucking hard. On Legendary, I'd say it's a nightmare, but it's a fair challenge. It's not bullshit. You won't die right away when you walk out from cover like Halo 2. You won't die faster than the Marines like Halo 3. You won't die from insta-kill melee attacks a la Reach 4 and 5. But Halo creates a fun, fair, challenging, and balanced gameplay experience. Which means when you die, it's usually 98% your fault. Except for the Rocket Launcher Flood. Fuck the Rocket Launcher Flood. I hate them. Enemies are all unique, consistent, and are varied. I often compare Halo to a chess game, because it's not about having the strongest pieces, or weapons in this case. It's about strategy. Do you focus the pawns to make it easier to take the bishop? Or do you focus the bishop so the pawns are left in the open? Make sure you plan ahead, because Halo forces you to think like this on the battlefield. The grunts, or pawns, are the cannon fodder. They are weak on their own, but are powerful in numbers. They scream and run when they see you, so they'll alert the other enemies. Sometimes they can be seen patrolling the area, and other times they can be seen taking a cute little nap. Aww. The jackals are all about defense. They generally try to hold a specific position. Their shields are strong, but are weak to plasma weapons, and there's an opening on their side. The elites are your equal. They have a very strong energy shields, and they will use offensive and defensive maneuvers. They will rush you, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. When your shields are down, they will take you out if you're not careful. They often carry plasma rifles, or sometimes the deadliest melee weapon in all of gaming, the energy sword. But even if they can kill you instantly with this weapon, the attacks can be dodged. They are telegraphed. The Covenant weapons are all projectile based, and they can be dodged as well. But the same cannot be said for the UNSC weapons, which are mainly hit-scan firearms. The Hunters are the big tanky mini-bosses, but are weak to the sniper rifle and the almighty pistol. A single shot from this gun can kill the Hunters. Okay, the sniper makes sense, but why the pistol? The Hunters have a powerful melee and ranged attack, but the melee is telegraphed and so is the ranged attack. Their fuel cannon glows when they are about to shoot, giving you time to prepare to dodge it. The Sentinels are laser-spewing robots who are weak to plasma weapons. But there is another enemy faction I did not talk about yet. The Flood fight astronomically different than the Covenant. Instead of taking cover and shooting you, they will rush you and pounce on you. They do shitloads of damage and can use UNSC weapons like the rocket launcher. The Flood are generally knocked for being less enjoyable than the Covenant, and I can see where they're coming from. But personally, I've never had a problem with the Flood. They are still fun enemies to shoot. At least they act smarter than the Combine from Half. Halo has a brilliant atmosphere that follows you throughout. Every level, every song, and every little detail help create this brilliant atmosphere. These levels, man, they all have lore behind them. They have significance. One of the most atmospheric levels is ironically one of the most hated. I'll talk about why people hate this level itself later. But this level is so great with its atmosphere. The containment center that once could have been a beautiful, mystical place is now dark, decrepit, and an unsettling silence follows you throughout. This brings me to my next point. The soundtrack. The soundtrack that Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore created is just absolutely iconic, and it's one of the best FPS soundtracks I've ever heard. It's not about creating a new song for every level, it's about the use of each song in every level, because if you just have the music playing in the background with no substance, it ends up not impacting with what's going on during gameplay. One of my favorites does repeat itself often, but it's absolutely brilliant. Another track plays during two betrayals when you emerge from the Forerunner cave and see a large-scale battle between the Flood and the Covenant. Every music track is excellent and sets the tone perfectly. It may not be as varied as Half-Life soundtrack, but it's damn near perfect in my opinion. But what about your introduction to the game's second faction of enemies? Well, that's a whole different story.
Transmission from the captain's dropship was from this area. That was over 12 hours ago. When you locate Captain Key, radio in, and I'll come...
In the mission 343 Guilty Spark, you land in this dark swamp to see the Covenant running from something. Creeping through this outside area and hearing that unsettling music track, it's truly a masterclass in environmental storytelling. This level was ruined in Halo CE Anniversary, but we are on the OG graphics, so it's better. But when you're walking across this large tree, you can see what appears to be a friendly Marine off in the distance, but gunshots are coming from the upcoming cave. Marines? Here? You enter the cave to see nothing, just an elevator, but at the bottom is a horde of scared Covenant hiding behind a wall. But when you come across these rooms with blood everywhere, goop dripping from the ceiling, and a crazy Marine who shoots at you screaming about some monsters. But all this time you're thinking, I didn't do this. But what did? When you go across that light bridge, there's blood everywhere. When you trigger the cutscene, you find out what happened, and then... Wait, what's that noise? What the... Oh, shit! Ah! What the hell are these things? Get the hell away from me, you living boogers! Then the door you came in busts open, and the Flood come in and rush your ass. Did you wonder why there were no elites in this level? Because they're all Flood now! Holy shit! If you try to go back to the elevator you came in on, it fucking collapses! God damn! But when you do find the real elevator, there's blood all over the walls. Why? Because the Flood were throwing dead bodies down the fucking elevator shaft! When you do make it to the surface, all the Marines greet you, but they all die in the escape. But a new face greets you, 343 Guilty Spark, and you're taken to the next level. Halo Combat Evolved has amazing level design. They all look, feel, and play different. Every level may not change the gameplay to cover up the bad shooting, but as I said, Halo's shooting is fucking fantastic, so I'm glad the gameplay reverts to the rule of 3. What is the rule of 3, you might ask? Well, let me explain. Rule number 1, introduce the challenge as simply as possible. Rule number 2, do it again with a slight variation. 3, do it again with another twist. Halo's levels do repeat rooms, but it always changes the enemy encounters for these repeated rooms, and this might be a hard thing for people to grasp. But if you can play the same levels over and over again, but the gameplay always changes every game, nothing is the same. Sounds like Fortnite. Oh wait, it sounds like nearly every other shooter since Halo. I'm not shitting on Fortnite or other shooters. In fact, I rather enjoy Fortnite's gameplay. But that's not today's topic. Back to Halo. Halo is some of my favorite levels in the franchise and gaming in general. My favorite, Two Betrayals, is often criticized for being assault in the control room backwards, but it's all new shit. The coolest thing about this level is the AI. Do you sit back and watch the Covenant, Flood, and Sentinels murder each other? Or do you help one side take out the other for an easier time? Or do you avoid them entirely? It's all up to you. The other difference is that it's a nighttime, and it's more chaotic than anything Halo has to offer. It's beautiful, serene, and I love it. But the previous mission, that one is where problems begin to arise. The library. This level is often hated by the Halo community, despite having an excellent atmosphere. It is the most repetitious level in the game. Even though this mission is way too long and the rooms repeat themselves too often, I kinda love it. It is just hordes of enemies all over. The Flood are ruthless. They attack from above, below, from the walls, and this mission overwhelms you, and it's fucking fantastic. If you hate this level, try giving it an open mind. Take in the atmosphere. This is the real highlight of Halo's atmosphere, and most players don't even realize this. My dad made me play this with him on Legendary when I was like 6 years old. He made me play it because it was fucking hard. So if you hated this level as a kid, maybe you'll appreciate it more as an adult. If you're a boomer watching this video, then you remember Halo. You miss Quake, don't you? Don't you? Halo is a damn near perfect game. Weapon models are spot on, weapon sway isn't as annoying as fuck, but there are a few bugs and glitches. Sometimes this happens.
Fucking roll!
Oh my god, that is fucking hilarious. But this game is quite polished, and it doesn't have those cut corners like Half-Life 2. Conclusion, few games are perfect, but this is as close as we're gonna get to a perfect game. Halo CE gets a whopping 9 out of 10. That's a long stretch. I gave Half-Life 2 a 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10, that sort of thing, but really, Halo Combat Evolved is better than Half-Life 2. So all you deluded Half-Life 2 fanboys that are subscribed to my channel and think Half-Life 2 is the greatest first-person shooter of all time, well, to be quite frank, you're wrong. I mean, you're not wrong, everybody's entitled to their own opinions, but still, Halo Combat Evolved is fantastic, and if you really want a new game and you haven't played Halo before, I'd recommend you give it a shot. It's just great. Anyways, guys, that was Skeptical Rowan. Thank you all for watching. Peace.